Let me give you a horror story, and I wish I could say this was a law school exam and not a real case, but it's a real case. So we've got a 14-year-old, 15-year-old student in a drama class. She's in a school that, one of these like magnet schools that if you've got gifts and talents in these areas, they kind of accentuate that and they teach them. That's great. She gets into the program. They have to do a monologue, which is not uncommon. I mean, I did that, and I remember my drama class and speech class in law school, in undergraduate school. So they do that in the high school. You randomly draw a monologue, okay? Now, teachers approved this monologue. The monologue was so vile. The language, first of all, I said the language here would be fined by the FCC. Okay, this is coming out of a 14, 15-year-old. The mother, do we have this? Rick, I want you to see it. I want our audience to see this. The mother goes to a school board meeting and starts reading the monologue her student was required to read in class. And watch what happens here.
This will be horrifying for me to read to you, but that will give you perspective on how she must have felt when her teacher required her to memorize this and to act it out in front of her entire class. I don't love you. It's not you. It's just, I don't like your dick, or any dick in that case. I cheated, Joe.
I'm sorry.
This is propaganda.
Forgive me. Excuse me. I don't. Thank you so much for your. Thank you for your comment. Forgive me. We're not using profanity. Simply, this is a public meeting. I asked for decorum.
If you don't want me to read it to you, what was that like for my 15-year-old daughter to have to memorize?
Okay, Rick, I wish I could tell you that wasn't real, and it is. Now, so real that we went to federal court and sued on behalf of the mother and the student. And the student's case is going forward now. We beat back a motion to dismiss, which was a big win. There was also, and I don't want to get into the details on this part, the teacher did things the teacher should not have done as far as physically touching the student after this happened, which was also inappropriate, and that is part of the lawsuit. And then, of course, there's the First Amendment claim. An Obama appointee judge said there was no pedagogical concern that would have justified that action in that classroom. And yet, when the mother went to the school board meeting, they shut her down because it was, quote, had profanity in it.
I mean, what's so outrageous, I'm sitting here thinking how many more times this is happening across our country. I mean, we have been teaching our kids to hate America and all this woke BS. We've got to get much more aggressive. Part of the problem, Jay, is ourselves. We have allowed this to happen in our communities. And people need to realize they have a voice. They better get involved, and they better participate with organizations that are on the front line like ACLJ. This is so outrageous to me that we're teaching 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds to do this and to memorize pornographic information and act it out in front of their peers. Yeah. Who is this teacher, and why do they still have a job? Is it because of the unions and tenure? Sure. Well, then that's a problem.
Yeah, well, the reality is this was a very traumatic event for this family, as you can imagine. But the fact is, and we're in federal court on it. We're going to beat him. We're going to get justice here. But the fact that this even happened is outrageous.
Yeah, and it's extremely outrageous when you see the mother trying to bring this to the attention of the school board, the horror that happened to her daughter. And yet she gets shut down at the school board saying, oh, you can't say that here, you can't use that profanity. Yet her 15-year-old daughter was required to memorize it and to recite it. And that is where, it gets to be ridiculous. Obviously, that child should not have been able to or be required to say that. And that teacher should have pulled that monologue in the first place.
The thing I go back to is, how did that monologue get in the school curriculum in the first place, Rick?
A teacher who read it thought, well, this is something that students should learn because it's going to push them in a certain direction. Exactly. And that is the whole
exactly problem. What they said. Yep.
That is the whole problem, because teachers shouldn't be pushing kids in certain directions. They don't have this moral authority to somehow, expand the horizons of these kids. This is the job of the parents. And teachers who are this aggressive, who have a strategy, an activist strategy, should actually lose their job. They got to go back and teach the basics. Our kids are failing. They're not able to compete. They're not able to compete in today's economy in terms of just computer skills. Yet we're teaching them to memorize pornographic speeches because the teacher likes it. This is really depraved activity.
I mean, it was so interesting to me that the Obama judge, Harry, President Obama's nominee, who is a judge in the case, recognized the lack of legitimate pedagogical concern here. There was no child benefit,
Absolutely.
Educational benefit in that approach.
So essentially, in Nevada, the school was weaponizing itself and its classroom against both parents and school children. And this is part, I think, of the left's deep state agenda to disassociate parents from their children and to see parents, if you will, as a impediment to the child's education. So the school sets itself up in loco parentis, basically as a superior to the parents. And I think this is an agenda, a deep state agenda, that the ACLJ is fighting strongly against.
But the key to the fight here is you got to go, Andy, to federal court, and you got to beat back the school boards and the school board lawyers and all the insurance companies that are part of it.
Yes, and that's exactly what we did, and that's exactly what we persist in doing, Jay, because we are going to stand up for the family, for traditional values, and as we say in Greek, syndiritiki, conservative, and not ashamed about being conservative, syndiritiki, traditionalists, and not being ashamed to be traditionalists, in the tradition of the Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian tradition that we inherit, and not to be ashamed of it.
But you know, the fascinating aspect, Rick, and I want to go back to you with this. We're now in the heat of I feel like the general election's already started. It really has, for all practical purposes. And when you look at the kind of the lay of the land right now, and it is a tale of two cities. The worldviews are so different. There's no commonality anymore. There's no middle ground to meet on, unfortunately. And the left is trying to silence anybody that even their own people when they speak out, if they agree with us.
Look, that's one of the things that I think conservatives have to start pushing back on is just the idea that we have dissenting views, that we have a conversation where two people have different opinions and one is not right and one is not wrong. It's a different of opinion. And we can't cancel each other for it. We can't have this system where we say, you're providing misinformation, and so there's a moral obligation to crush you and to silence you. And that's what's happening right now. The media have taken the side of Democrats that people who have a differing opinion are somehow pushing misinformation, dangerous information, and they must be stopped and crushed. That is a problem. That is the problem on the left, and it's a problem with the media. We have to get back to being able to have differing opinions, agree to disagree, and to fight it out in elections. When you have two different visions, whatever politician or school board member or whatever it is, whoever wins, elections have consequences.
Absolutely. All right, Rick, we appreciate it. Thanks for being part of the team.